Well, as the fall time continues to fly by, we see pumpkins all over the place and a variety of different pumpkins. But do you know the origins of the pumpkin? Do you know how it came to be or what the background story of it is? We're going to go over some interesting information that you may not be aware of the pumpkin.
So pumpkins are believed to have originated in North America. Seeds from related plants have been found in Mexico, dating back to 7,000 to 55,000 BC.
5,500. 7,000.
Thank you.
That's a broad range there. 7,000 years ago to 5,500 BC.
Numbers are hard
yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
Okay. So there are, Joey and I looked this up, and there's 40 to 50 varieties of pumpkins. Joey was like convinced that there was over 100, and
you see all these pumpkins. You look at catalogs and you look at seeds and you look at stores and all that, and you would think there's probably a bunch of different varieties of pumpkins in the world. Hundreds of them. But yeah, there's between 40 and 50 actual categorized or classified pumpkin varieties in the world that are known. Obviously, there are some probably that are unknown, much like other varieties of plant life that people have cultivated over the years, but never have put it into the commercial cycling for purchase.
Right. So, and the name comes from originally the Greek word large melon, which is Pepon, and then that was changed by the French into pompon, and then from pompon to Pumpion, and then we changed it from Pumpion into pumpkin.
I don't know which is the best term if we had to pick one. Yeah. But it's interesting. And that's the way a lot of our words, if you go back and look at the history of language, how the traditional word and then it's been changed over into what we are commonly known as the pumpkin today for this example. So that's interesting. Pumpkins contain potassium and vitamin A. So if that's something of interest to you. Also, we have found that when we personally juice a pumpkin, it is horrible. It is a terrible
it was bad.
Flavor. It's just, I don't know
know if you want to call it a flavor. It's more or less like swamp water, possibly.
Swamp water would have been a pleasant beverage compared to what this juiced pumpkin was. I don't know if it oxidized or what the deal was. They are 90% water, but the flavor and it was horrible.
So pumpkins are a member of the Cucurbita family.
Cucurbita.
Yeah, there we go. Which includes squash and cucumbers, and also gourds. Yeah,
gourds is a common friendly family member of the pumpkin.
So the largest pumpkin pie ever made, and was this right?
Yeah, this from what we have found is accurate. The other one
was 5 feet in diameter, weighed over 350 pounds. It was 80 pounds of cooked pumpkin, 36 pounds of sugar, 12 dozen eggs, and 6 hours to bake.
Well, I'm going to say probably, it would be proportionate to a small pie. It's not like, 36 pounds of sugar is a lot, but for a pie that size, it would be it would be the same. Now, pumpkins come in all shapes, sizes, and colors, from our traditional orange to pink to green, blue, white. They have names like cotton candy. Is a familiar one. Jardel is a great pie pumpkin in which has a bluish gray pigment to the skin, but a very thick orange wall inside of it with a very small seed cavity. The smoothest pumpkin texture you will ever find. So if you're able to pick some of those up at your garden center, at your grocery store, at your farm stand, Jardel is the one that we would highly recommend. If you don't grow them, buy a Jardel pumpkin and make pumpkin pie. You will not be disappointed at all with that particular variety.
Right. 80% of the pumpkin supply in the United States is available in October. So that's
makes common sense there.
Pumpkin time.
Yeah. Majority of them are grown in the state of Illinois. One of the nice things that Illinois has produced in regards to agriculture. 95%. So, and that's referring to the majority of what we classify as jack-o'-lantern pumpkins, the carving of just in general pumpkins?
In general pumpkins.
Right. But the majority of pumpkins in which we associate fall with is jack-o'-lanterns.
Right. And that variety is called the Connecticut field variety.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And those are edible. However, it is not good edible pumpkin. we have experimented with the procedure of canning, making pies with the traditional jack-o'-lantern pumpkin. There's two downfalls to that. One, it's a low sugar content inside the pumpkin, and it's extremely stringy. So it doesn't make for good pie puree. Whenever you get a pie pumpkin, per se, a pie pumpkin, it is a higher natural sugar content and a smoother texture of the meat inside.
It's meatier, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that is definitely a difference. And in early colonial times, pumpkins were used as the ingredient for the crust of the pie, not the filling.
And let's be clear that when we all went through elementary school and we saw the images of the Native Americans and the Pilgrims breaking bread at Thanksgiving with a pie, that didn't happen.
No.
That was an artist recreation of false history.
False history.
Yeah, there was no pumpkin pie for a long time. And I don't know how often the Native Americans and the invaders, the colonial pilgrims, sat together and enjoyed a meal.
I don't think that ever.
Very often, if any.
No.
Yeah.
So speaking of the Native Americans.
Yes.
They flattened strips of pumpkins, dried them, and made them into mats.
Yeah, the skins.
Pumpkin mat, yeah.
Yeah, used them as floor mats or door mats.
They also use the pumpkin seeds for food and medicine. So that's another thing too.
Well, and that's the thing, and we don't get into conversations much of this on this program, but we have lost a tremendous amount of knowledge about the earth, what is good for the human body, what is not good for the human body, because Native Americans understood this plant kills you, this plant makes you better, this plant does that, and we've just said, hey, we don't care about that, we're going to take pills.
Right.
That's really the flat line of what has happened.
Well, at one point they used pumpkin puree or whatever for freckles and snake bites.
They would rub it on it?
Right.
Okay.
However, there's certain things you can buy that do have natural things that have pumpkin in it because it's high in vitamin A and that's good for your skin. So that makes sense.
Also, you can take a pumpkin, and this is any variety of pumpkin, and we have done this. You can take and chunk it up, chop it down, puree it, and dry it into a powder form, or dry it into a dry form, and then grind it to a powder, and make pumpkin flour or pumpkin seed flour. And the recommendations or how that is used is, 1 part pumpkin flour to 3 parts normal flour. It's a ratio in which you have to utilize. It can't be 100% pumpkin flour or 100% pumpkin seed flour. There is a mixture in which you have to use some form of other flours in order to bind them together. But it does create a nice orange texture, and it does add more nutrient to the dish in which, or the baking recipe in which you're making.
Right. So the largest pumpkin ever grown, or the heaviest, was this guy. Excuse me.
The world record.
The world record
has been changing basically every week right now.
Well, this is the most recent by the Guinness Book of World Records. This guy named Matthias of Belgium set the current world record for the heaviest pumpkin in October of 2016 with a pumpkin that weighed 2,624 pounds.
That's quite a big. Now, I know that there's been records changing here in North America.
That's probably how much your car weighs.
Yeah, pretty much. And there's other things in which you can do with the pumpkin, roasted pumpkin seeds. Also, there is recipes in which you can take that glutinous slime, that's in the pumpkin, and you can bake it and add sugar to it and actually create a candy of sorts with it. So, pretty interesting facts about pumpkins.
Pumpkin soup is good.
Yeah, pumpkin soup is good. So, interesting of where the origins of the pumpkin came from and how it has changed over time. And there are ways in which people are cross-pollinating pumpkins to get different varieties. But as we have found in our experience, the traditional heirloom varieties are the best because they have been around for the longest time and have adapted to things that have altered their growing conditions.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.